Welcome to The Writer Reads The Strays of Lunar One. This is Book 2, The Unwanted, Chapter 12, Repentance. While Lewis went back into the shuttle's systems and programmed a slow-moving route that took it around the colony and then out into the wilderness at a height most would think twice before trying to force it down from, Oliver secured Aylin and her bodyguards. The fact she only had two travelling with her spoke of the importance she held her liaison duties in, and he wanted to weep. Lewis was wrong. They weren't in it, but deep. They'd already drowned and their bodies were floating down the river. He was sure Nettles had sold them out, that the second they handed Aylin over they'd be taken into custody and put up for auction. And with the Star Shadows now involved, he didn't like their chances of survival. Not even Ravelin had the power to outbid them. And if Aylin's he was the heir. If he was honest, Oliver wanted to leave the shuttle and flee into the wilds to live as a wolf for as long as the planet allowed him. There was no future for him among the sentient. Except he couldn't. He'd made a promise, and Lewis deserved better, if he could get the damned man to comply. One of the guards groaned, and Oliver hit him with the extra sedative he'd kept on hand. When the girl showed signs of coming round, he stuffed a gag in her mouth and hoped he'd get the chance to explain. "All done," Lewis told him, as Oliver carried the girl from the shuttle and secured the hatches. He indicated the slowly waking but increasingly angry Aylin. "What are we going to do with her?" The girl stiffened in Oliver's arms, and he cast Lewis a look of askance. "We're going to deliver her," he told his beater. "Given who she is, I doubt even Nettles is stupid enough to not return her." At mention of the smugglers' names, Aylin gave a muffled squawk that sounded like a repeat of the smuggling company's name, and then several more sounds that sounded like a request to talk about it. Oliver set the girl on her feet and shook his head. "I'm sorry," he told her. "We're exiles, and Nettles is our only way out of Lupar territory. If we don't comply—" She made another angry sound of denial. He sighed. "I wish there was another way, but they've told us they're returning you to your pack." Her response sounded like she was trying to ask him if he was stupid, and he really was glad he'd thought to restrain her, as well as the guards. From the look on her face, she'd have tried to kill him if she'd been free. Lewis laid a hand on his arm. "Boss, we could just—" Oliver shook his head. As much as he wanted to believe he could return the girl and everything would be all right, he knew better. "Neither of us have committed a crime worth the sentence we'd be given." He looked at the girl, figuring she deserved an explanation. "I bit him without permission, turning him where? Lunar One laws are very clear on that, so I ran. And then Odyssey wouldn't let us serve the clan that gave us refuge." He didn't expect her to understand. She was only 14. But her eyes had lit at the mention of Odyssey, and he didn't trust her. "I'll make sure you can get free when you're delivered," he told her. "And I'll make sure you're armed, but that's the best I can do." Ignoring Lewis's horrified look, he picked the girl up and slung her over his shoulder. Glaring at his beater, he snarled, "Where's our transport?" Lewis curled his lip in reply, and the girls stared. Oliver rumbled a growl that demanded obedience, and Lewis gave him the finger, then moved it in a gesture that indicated the two shuttles flying tandem toward them. "Two?" Oliver demanded, and Lewis crooked an eyebrow. "Two," he snapped back, stabbing a finger at the girl. "One for her and one for us. You'd better make good on your promise for her to get free and be armed." Oliver pointed to the weapons Aylin had been carrying. "I brought her gear with me," he said, setting her feet on the ground beside him. "But there is no way in Hades I'm putting the little she-cat in the shuttle conscious." Until he'd said that, Aylin had been quite happy to stand beside him. As he spoke, she tried to pull out of his grip. Oliver held on and slapped her with the sedative patch he'd prepared, wondering where a young lady had learned the sort of language he caught emerging from beneath her gag. Lewis was appalled. "But you can't," he protested. "What if she doesn't wake up before she gets there?" Lewis gave him a very direct look. "That's up to you. You know the dosage and the amount of time. Plot her a route that gets her there with enough time to clear her head by the time she lands." "And not too much beforehand," he admonished. "I want the delivery to actually arrive. The contract won't be filled otherwise." "Couldn't you just give her back?" Lewis asked. But Oliver shook his head. "It's too late for that now," he answered, catching Aylin as she slumped. Sadness crept into his voice. It was too late when we took the job. But we could just leave her here. Lewis laid a hand on Oliver's arm, his voice pleading. Alpha, we're both grown and on the run already. Why don't we put her in the shuttle, send the Star Shadows her coordinates, and leave? Nettles can chase us for the contract, but if we tell the Star Shadows who hired us and what we were told, Nettles will have other things to worry about. His tone darkened. And there's no way they'll be getting out from under that. Oliver sank down into a crouch, keeping Aylin upright beside him. Lewis made several good points, and as insubordinate as his second might be, he was a good beater. The booster squire's captain had been more accurate than she knew when she'd called Oliver the muscle, but that was true of any good alpha. They had to be strong enough to hold the pack against challengers. It was the beater who helped them govern wisely, and Lewis wasn't finished. If we deliver her, even without proving what we know, we are no better than Rennett's World or Ravelin, he said, coming to crouch in front of him. Alpha, we have to be better than that. Even if it ends us? Oliver asked, bitterness touching his words. Lewis gave a soft, bitter laugh. We're ended already, Alpha. You think I don't know that? He leaned in. We just haven't had the good grace to lie down and accept it. But we can choose who we'll be when it finally catches up to us. And I would rather not be the man who handed over a helpless 14-year-old to someone who will probably pass her on to the pack's worst enemy. He moved in closer, sinking down so that he could look up to catch Oliver's eyes. A soft whine escaped his throat as he added, Please don't make me that man, Alpha. Whether it was the whine or the look in Lewis's eyes or the fact his best friend tilted his head to offer his throat for judgment, Oliver didn't know, but he didn't want to be that man either. Can't you get the shuttle off the road so it's less easily seen? He asked. We can't leave her outside it. I don't know what predators own this area, and I don't want to risk her life any more than we already have. I can do that, Lewis assured him, taking Aylin from him and carrying her to the shuttle with her weapons, as Oliver sat back on the grass and wrapped his arms around his knees. May the gods of fools and dreamers protect us, he murmured, lifting his head to stare at the sky, because there is nothing else that can. Amen, Lewis murmured, securing the shuttle hatches and backing away. Seconds later, the shuttle's engines purred to life and it lifted. Oliver watched it turn off the road and vanish beneath a distant stand of trees. Will they find it? He asked, and Lewis nodded. I've set it to contact the local Star Shadow representatives in 15 minutes, he said, and Oliver rose tiredly to his feet. And now? We could make the boosters orbit, his beater suggested, but Oliver shook his head. I'd rather not compromise them any more than they already are. It won't take the Shadows much to connect our arrival and the booster, and they already have Ravelin to contend with. Lewis sighed. Somehow I figured you'd say that. So what do you think of this? I have this shuttle drop us not far from the shuttle port and then program it to try and reach the Squire. Try? Oliver interrupted. Try, Lewis confirmed. You don't think either the Shadows or Nettles are going to let us get that far, do you? Oliver snorted softly. No. Go on. Lewis brightened. There are 2 other ships in orbit. We can either try and get aboard the Odyssey cruise liner. Sugar sides, Oliver interrupted, and Lewis shook his head. No, this one's the Limelight. I'd rather keep away from Odyssey if it's all the same to you, Oliver told him. What's my other option? He made quotation marks, and Lewis managed to laugh as he replied, It's a fresh produce carrier. Oliver groaned and started toward the other shuttle. Let's get this over with. I swear, if they auction me smelling of rotten vegetables. Lewis didn't respond to that. He lifted his head, his nostrils flaring as he turned it. I'll send the shuttle now, he said, dragging Oliver toward the tree line. But we can't go with it. They're too close. They're not even supposed to be here, Oliver protested, but he ran on Lewis's heels and they both hit the dirt in the tree shadows as their second shuttle's engines roared to life. Seconds later, it took off, climbing as though trying to make the orbit of one of the 3 ships circling overhead. Keep your head down, Lewis warned as Oliver caught what Lewis had heard before, the sound of 2 more shuttles accelerating in swift pursuit. If you're lucky, they didn't think to check their scans, Lewis told him when they'd raced past. He slapped Oliver's shoulder. Come on, there's a farm. They dog-trotted further into the trees and then up a narrow dirt track and around a bend in the hill until they found a broad, bowl-shaped valley filled with trees in orderly lines. Produce carrier, huh? Oliver said as Lewis climbed a post and rails fence and jogged into the shadows in the orchard. It seemed too good an opportunity to waste, Lewis told him. I was pretty sure you wouldn't want to risk the Odyssey liner. Above them, lightning flashed briefly from the pursuing vessels, and their shuttle exploded in 1,000 shards of light. The sound of it only made Oliver run faster, and he grabbed Lewis's arm as he passed. Come on, he shouted. They came to this area for a reason. They'll be back. Lewis ran with him, scolding him through their implant. Are you out of your tiny little mind, boss? I mean, why don't you just wait the entire fucking farm? Oliver let go of his arm long enough to smack him over the back of the head, and they skidded into one of the large barns set in the centre of the orchard. Stacks of empty crates stood at one end of several broad empty tables, and Oliver turned to Lewis in disbelief. "You're sure he's got something here he's shipping?" he asked. "What if it's already gone?" Lewis's face fell. "Find me a terminal," he decided. "We'll hack his system and see." He looked around the barn. "Although if that thing's leaving orbit any time in the next 6 hours, we're going to have two chances of being on board it, and then we're well and truly screwed." They'd moved further into the barn as they talked, keeping their voices to hushed whispers as they walked further inside. It took them several minutes to notice the small office at the end of the building. Its light was on, but it was empty. Oliver looked carefully around, his nostrils flaring to catch any scent that might clue them in to where the building's residents might be. It had been early morning when they'd arrived, and the sun was close to its zenith by the time they'd reached the farm. "How do we even know this is a legitimate fruit farm?" Oliver whispered. "What if it's part of, you know?" "You mean star shadows or nettles?" Lewis asked, no longer whispering, although he kept his voice low. "Yes," Oliver replied. "What if we've just gone from frying pan to fire?" Lewis crossed quickly to the single terminal on the main desk in the room. "There's only one way to find out." "You could just ask," came the suggestion from the doorway. It was accompanied by the whine of a blast rifle coming online. Oliver shot Lewis a look of askance as he slowly raised his hands. Lewis replied with rolled eyes and a shrug. Slowly they both turned to face the man in the doorway, and noticed the other men. The office had a half wall topped by glass windows on two sides, and there was close to a dozen humans peering in, all armed and looking like they knew how to use the blasters they carried. "Two men come running through the orchard like all the wolves in Hades are on their tails," the man in the doorway began, "and I have to ask myself what they're running from, and why." "We're just trying to get off this rock," Oliver told him. "Without being discovered doing it," the man replied, and twitched his blaster to indicate they should sit in the chairs nearest them. Oliver and Lewis exchanged glances, but very carefully did as they were told. "Care to share?" the man pressed. Oliver shook his head. The farmer tried a different approach. "Care to tell me why we should help?" Oliver lifted his head. "Because we're dead men if you don't?" The man cocked his head. "Now, who have you two pissed off that much?" Oliver shot him a pleading look, but could tell from the look on the guy's face that he was going to have to give him something. He looked at Lewis. "Penny and pound, right, bro?" The farmer gave a startled bark of laughter. "I don't think I've heard that one since—" His smile faded. "It's an old Earth saying." His eyes narrowed. "You're not from Lunar One, are you?" Lewis hung his head. "He's got us, Ollie." "Ollie." The man's eyes turned calculating. He looked at the beater. "Let me guess. You're Lou." Oliver made to come out of his seat, but the sound of a half-dozen blasters warming up made him freeze. "We are so very fucked," Lewis muttered, and Oliver stared at him in disbelief. "I'm not the one who started throwing names around like confetti," he snapped, sinking slowly back into his seat. "Any reason why I shouldn't let Odyssey have you?" the farmer asked, and Oliver looked him in the eye. Way things are, that might be preferable to what will happen if Ravlin, Nettles, Xanol Blue, or the Star Shadows catch up with us. The farmer shook his head. And I thought you boys wanted to live. He gestured at Oliver. First, this one uses an Earth saying, then pointed at Lewis. And then you go giving your mate's name away. He swung back to Oliver. And then you give us the names of all the interested parties who might pay to hear from us. He took a deep breath and let it out in an impatient huff. What is this? Amateur hour? Oliver ignored the jibe and cut straight to the chase. What were you saying about us living? He asked, and the farmer chuckled. I wondered how slow you were. He gestured to his men. We want to know what you did to have all those folks so upset. Well, Lewis and I took a contract for information retrieval from Ravlin, and Lewis got hurt getting it out. When I tried to save him, I harmed him, then ran away, taking him with me. For some reason, Odyssey stuck their noses in and wanted me for, well, whatever it is they want, and forced our pack to exile us, which forced us to try and deal with Nettles, who fooled us into making a very bad decision regarding the Star Shadows. The farmer started to laugh. Let me get this straight. You bit your friend to save his life and got yourself on the wrong side of the Justicars and Odyssey since they worked together on these things, and then you got exiled and tried to make a deal with smugglers who sold you out, so you're trying to make a break for it. Oliver paled and tried to ignore Lewis's shocked expression. Yep, he managed, and you're not just a fruit farmer. The humor vanished from the farmer's face. We all got our secrets, Wolf Boy, and our pasts, even if we don't want to remember them. He looked at his people. What do you think? Shall we send them up? Oliver rose slowly from his seat. We'll just leave, he began, and found himself looking down the muzzle of the blast rifle. Sit, the man commanded, and Oliver and Lewis complied. Very good. He turned once more to his people. Do we take the risk? We give them a head start, one man finally answered. After that, we tell the interested parties what they need to know. He indicated the sky beyond the barn roof. Shuttle didn't get clear enough fast enough. They will come. Murmurs of assent came from around the windows. The farmer cocked his head, somehow keeping an eye on them while he paid attention to the conversation going on in his implant. Finally, he nodded. Agreed. He nodded to the gathered crew and looked at Oliver and Lewis. So, he said, this is what we've decided. We'll get you and your friend here aboard the damned damsel, and we won't tell anyone what we've done for... He glanced at his men. 48 hours? Nods came from all around the room, and the farmer continued. And that's even if they come looking. After that, we'll be telling them as soon as they ask. Sound fair? And how far out of orbit will the damsel be then? Oliver asked. She lifts in 12 hours. You caught us prepping the final load. The farmer cocked his head. Good timing, that. Oliver wasn't so sure, but he wasn't going to argue the point. You're going to smuggle us aboard? The farmer nodded. You got it. How do you feel about dry stasis? Both Oliver and Lewis came out of their seats, pivoting to stand back to back. The farmer raised an eyebrow. Is that a no? It's a last time my friend almost died and I'd rather throw myself on Odyssey's mercy than have that happen again, Oliver replied. And you? I came close but didn't get hit as hard, Oliver told him truthfully. So, are you Wes or Lupari? The farmer asked, and Oliver's mouth almost twitched into a smile. Yes, he said, going on to explain at the farmer's confused frown. We are both. Oh, that's not good. The farmer's frown deepened and looked over at the men behind his window. The man who'd spoken before shrugged. I've got 2 coffin crates we can use, he said, but they'll be hard to replace. Coffin crates? Oliver and Lewis exchanged glances. The farmer laughed. You boys are a bit young to remember the Zanzibar nights, so I won't bore you with ancient history. But coffin crates was their term for time decay stasis pods. Time decay stasis. Oliver looked from the farmer to Lewis. Finally, he managed to clear his throat. How old? They're still inside their use by, the farmhand reassured him, and Oliver resisted the urge to ask him how much by. Anything was better than another dose of suspenses. The farmer gave him a broad smile that made him want to change his mind, except it was too late. The sound of a door opening behind them had them both turning, but the feathered darts slammed into their chests with shocking accuracy, and the drug punching through their veins was fast acting. Oliver had enough time to blink before he fell, and that was all. The farmer's words chased him down into the dark. Do you think they know? The answer floated after it, haunting his sleep. Not a hope in Hades' heart.